Hello everyone and welcome to SuttonsDaze. Today's canning chat day. Love canning chat day. I love that you guys are loving canning chat day. This is so much fun. Grab a cup of coffee or something cold and let's kick back and let's chat about canning. Always a good time. Got some great questions this week. I've started doing something a little different where like when you comment on this week's video, right? If you have a question, I will reply, check back next week. And you know that that question is going to be answered in the upcoming week. I think it makes it a lot easier, and for me anyway. And also, if I have missed your question, because some of them have been coming in much later, if I miss your question and you really want an answer, put second time and then repeat it again in the comment section of today's video, and I'll make sure that it ends up on next week's video. Some of the questions, if I toss an answer up there, it's because I really feel that the question is time sensitive and I'm concerned about making anybody wait. But in all seriousness, if your question is time sensitive, send me an email. My email address is down below in the description box. Send me an email. I normally get back to those rather quickly. Okay, let's get started with this week's questions. Patricia Sweet asks, have you ever dry canned cubed potatoes? Just saw someone show how they did. Never heard of that. This is a phenomena that has appeared in the last couple of years. And it's kind of this whacked out craze that seemed to take the internet by storm for a little while. So no, to answer your question, I do not, nor will I ever can potatoes without a liquid in the jar. Quite honestly, I find it to be rather foolish. Canning potatoes, which are a root vegetable, that means they are grown in the dirt, okay? You are taking those, peeling them, cutting them up, or not peeling them, which is rubble, putting them into the jar, putting a lid on it, and then canning it. Number one, the liquid is a conduit to get the heat and the temperature where it needs to be for the amount of time that it needs to be there to make the food safe to eat, okay? So when you take that factor out of the equation, you have just skewed every single thing about canning potatoes. Everything. Anything that you do from that point on is unsubstantiated and a pure guess. Foolish, okay? So, yeah, I'll never do it. I will never, ever do it. Potatoes need to have liquid around them in order to can them. If you don't want canned potatoes, okay, put them in the freezer. Cut them up and put them in the freezer. But please don't do that. It is not safe. Pardon me. It is not safe. And honestly, it's like playing Russian roulette with you and your family's health. So just don't do it. Darlene Newman, okay, says, my question is, I have a number 10 size can of peaches. Can I turn them into peach pie filling? My assumption is that you want to recan those peaches into peach pie filling. So my first thing is, no. If you do, you'll probably be very disappointed in the product because when you make peach pie filling, you're using fresh peaches. And so you're not... These are already processed. They're already very soft. Peaches are very soft, canned peaches. So they would only get softer or seriously degrade during that process, in my opinion. I tried searching for an answer for you because all I have is my opinion. And it's not out there. It's just not out there. So my gut says, no, don't do it. Now, if you're going to use that whole number 10 can to make peach pie filling to bake with immediately, absolutely no problem doing it because you're not storing it. You know what I mean? You're turning it into peach pie filling and you're making pies. I think that is totally doable. The best thing that I could recommend for a number 10 size can of peaches is to make yourself some jam and jelly because it will taste amazing and good and just, and you can can that. That's good. Okay. Great question. Kim Stanley says, can you give information on storing the rings on and stacking the jars on top of each other? I've always been told not to do that, so on and so forth. Okay, and then yes, that was it. So I have a hard, fast rule here. Don't stack jars. There's going to be a whole bunch of comments, I'm certain, that say, oh, I've stacked them my whole life, never had a problem. The fear is that it would create a false seal. Now, Ball Canning, Ball Preserving, whoever it is, said, somebody asked the question to them and they said, yes, you can stack them, but don't go any more than 2 high. To me, that still creates a false seal, especially when you're looking at variables like temperature. We're talking about this a lot lately, is the temperature in the pantries. You know that between 50 and 75 is the ideal temperatures, but a lot of people live in warmer climates and it could go up there. So if you've got that pressure sitting on top of that lid and it gets too warm in there, is that seal going to be compromised? I don't know. Am I willing to risk it? No, I'm not. So I don't do it. I store my rings on bungee cords, and I have boxes in the breezeway for the extras that I replenish the bungee cord stash with, you know, as they rust out or become no good. But I do not stack jars. If you have no choice, if room is an issue, then get yourself some corrugated cardboard, thick corrugated cardboard, and put that on the bottom layer and then stack jars on top of that. That makes it safer, okay? But stacking jars immediately on top of each other, I just don't think it's safe because of the variables that are out there that nobody is addressing. So for what it's worth, that's my answer. Great question though. Lemon Crinkles says, have you ever discussed the topic of canning rabbit or venison or other game? You know, I haven't devoted a conversation strictly to that, so we're going to go in depth a little bit here. Well, not in depth. We're going to do a cursory overlook, okay? Because to me, venison is no different than beef. Rabbit is no different than chicken. Pheasant, chucker, you know, anything like that, you know, is comparable to chicken. So, no, I haven't done different because you do it exactly the same. If you go to the National Center for Home Food Preservation, they actually address wild game. But if you compare those two things, they're completely the same as far as time, pressure, you know, the whole deal. So it's the same as any meat. Meat is meat is meat is meat. It just comes from different animals. And you want to trim as much of the fat as you can off of any that, you know, might have extra fat. The cool part about game is most of the time it doesn't have a lot of extra fat. So that's really good. But good question. I actually get it quite a lot. So thanks, Steph. Okay, Carlene Holt says, I recently received a vacuum sealer as a gift. Awesome gift, I might add. Is vacuum sealing bags of dried beans a good alternative to soaking and then canning them? You're kind of looking at apples and oranges there, Carlene, okay? So dried beans just need to go into a nice airtight container. They don't even have to be vacuum sealed. They just need to go into a nice airtight container. If you want to go that extra step to kill off any potential larvae that might be in there, you know, O2 absorbers or, you know, vacuum sealing is a great option. But canning beans means you have ready beans. So I actually do both steps. I have a good supply of dry beans, and then I use that supply of dry beans to supplement my canned beans. When I start running low on canned beans, I get them from the dried and I turn them into canned beans. And for that, you follow the process on the National Center for Home Food Preservation. So one feeds the other. No one is better than the other. Some people, I've read comments where people say that, oh, it's a waste of time to can beans. One, you can just go buy them from the store. Okay, do you know what's in those cans? That's gross. So anyway, you can just go buy them from the store. Or, you know, they only take X amount of time to cook. Well, yeah, but if you're a busy person, okay, like me, then that's a lot of time, and that may keep it from being on your menu. Whereas I have the convenience of going into my pantry, grabbing my home canned baked beans, cracking a jar, heating them up, and I'm good to go. I know what's in the jar. It's good, it's fresh, it's delicious, and it's mine. So, two different things, but they tie in together depending on how you rotate through your pantry. I hope that answers your question. Donna Whitbrot. Lisa, you've probably have answered this question many times, but I have not seen it asked. Can you safely pickle any vegetable, in particular broccoli and also coleslaw? Thank you so much. So, I actually haven't been asked this. And I did some research because there's only certain things that I pickle, but I have not found anybody that pickles broccoli florets. Nobody at all. But the broccoli stalks are amazing when they're pickled, right? I would wager a bet that most vegetables that you would think about pickling are good pickled. I mean, you know, there's that mix with the cauliflower and the carrots and this and that and the other, and that's really good. Pickled cauliflower is amazing. Pickled carrots are amazing. Pickled asparagus is amazing. Pickled broccoli stems is amazing. Pickled Brussels sprouts are amazing, okay? So it might be worth an experiment to see if you like, you know, that kind of stuff. As far as the coleslaw, I think the Amish canning book, I'll put the link down below, has a recipe for coleslaw that you can can. I've heard lots of people canning coleslaw. It sounds like something interesting, and I'm probably going to take you guys on an adventure with that later on this year, just to test it out and see if we like it. I like coleslaw. I like coleslaw a lot, and I really hate not having it available when I really want it and then not using it when I have it available. You know what I mean? So it's something that I'm interested in canning, so we will definitely be trying that out. But basically, from everything I've read, most all vegetables are pickleable. Pickleable. Keep your expectations reasonable. You know, squash, you know, keep your expectations reasonable. But yeah, you can pickle it. Great question. Jennifer Kellogg. If one has a glass top stove and the manufacturer says not to use it for pressure canning, what do you recommend as an alternative? So Jennifer, there's a lot of variables in here that I'm probably not going to be able to address, okay? Is it a Presto or is it an All-American? If it's a Presto, you need a burner or a hot plate that doesn't exceed 12,000 BTUs, okay? Presto, if you haven't bought a canner yet, Presto has an induction canner that works great with induction burners. I'll put links to those down below. They work great together. It's just an extra piece of security. Your All-American can go over an open flame like a turkey cooker, you know, outside turkey cooker, that kind of thing. So definitely, you know, your options there are widened because it's a heavier gauge metal. Excuse me. So it really depends on the canner. So if you want to kick me back an answer for next week and ask me more specific to your situation, I'd be happy to look into it for you and provide you with some more stuff. But I will put links to what I mentioned down below. Great question. Linda Reiner asks, ugly chicken question. You know I love me some ugly chicken, right? If you brine it in kosher or sea salt, would it affect the texture? So, I don't brine anything. I really don't. But the National Center for Home Food Preservation does not have an approved method for canning cured or brined meats. So my answer to you is that it's not approved. Now, if you've been with me for any length of time, you know I can my own corned beef. And I've done the research regarding the corning so that I understand why. The reason why they say no with the corned beef is because they believe that the corning makes the meat more dense, and so they are not certain, because they have not done the research, that the heat penetrates to the center of the meat so that it kills off any bacteria that it needs to kill off for the canning processing time. Now, as far as brining, I'm going to assume it's the same issue. And for ugly chicken, probably the same issue. I don't brine meat. I really don't. So as far as the taste or the texture, I don't know. I really don't know how it would turn out. If you're interested in an experiment, it might be worth it, it might not. But like I said, it's not approved, so it's at your own risk. Do some research, read through the National Center for Home Food Preservation regarding why they don't approve it for brining, okay? I'm sorry I couldn't give you more information than that, but I hope it helped. Next, we have Miriam Shores. How do I make and can strawberry jam using frozen strawberries? Excellent question. You can use practically any frozen fruit to make jam. You treat it the same exact way that you do fresh, okay? You're going to take it, you're going to puree it down, and you're going to add it to your pot. Your measurements stay the same, everything stays the same. So go ahead and grab that frozen fruit, throw it into a blender, throw it into the pot, make yourself some jam. Yum, good stuff. Great question. Kim Stanley says, I just got 6 10-pound bags of chicken leg quarters for 58 cents a pound. Score! Okay. I want to can it. Should I spend the time deboning or just can it with the bone in? She's also getting some ugly chicken breast later this week to can some ugly chicken. So, for the bone-on chicken. I have done it before, okay? And I won't do it again. It was one of those things where it's like, yeah, I'll try it. Okay, great, let's give it a shot. But I found that I didn't care for it because when you're canning it, I mean, there is the benefit, okay? There is the benefit of getting the bone broth, you know, combination by keeping it bone-on. But the bones become so brittle that half of them broke as I was pulling them out of the jar, and it just freaked me out because I was afraid of getting bone shards, you know, in my meal. So I actually ended up feeding it to the chickens. I did. But it was a cheap sacrifice. It really was. And they didn't seem to mind too much, actually. So it's not something that I care to do, but I know a lot of people do. So it's totally a preference for you and what you would be more comfortable with. I am not comfortable with it. And if you're looking for the best bone broth out of it, okay, if you are going to can it bone in, I would not can it raw. I would can it with liquid in there. You can leave it raw, but add liquid in there, and then you will actually get all the benefits of the bone broth because it'll be in the liquid, and you can pull that off, and you've got, you know, a twofer. Otherwise, you could very easily just, you know, debone them and then use the bones to make broth and can the chicken and then can the chicken broth. Easy peasy. It's not a big deal. So I hope that helps, and I hope it answers your question. So Leonis Glass asks, bottled lemon juice. The concentrate has very specific acid level for canning. Fresh lemons vary in acid level. So the bottled lemon juice from fresh lemons and some brands are organic. Do we know if this has the right amount of acid? It should tell you somewhere on the bottle if it, you know, what the level is. But because it's put out by the FDA and regulated by the FDA, it should have the I think it's 4.5% acidity that is necessary. It's lemon juice. So that is why you want to use lemon juice versus fresh lemons when you're canning. But even the organic should have the FDA requirements on the bottle. So I would check that. And like I said, I think it's 4.5% is the pH. So you check that out, and I hope this helps answer your question. Last but not least, see to yourself. I love your name. I have a question. Today I canned pork butt. One of the jars siphoned and didn't seal, so I sauteed some onions and dumped the hot meat in. It had a funny flavor, sort of like the smell of vinegar in the pot. When a jar siphons, does it suck in water from the canner? It can. It absolutely can, because yes, it can. Okay, so most likely you did get a little bit of vinegar in there. Another reason why I don't like adding vinegar to my pressure canning. But it's expelling the air. And if anything happens where it siphons, it could pull that back in. Totally feasible. So that's a good catch. Great question. Super great question. So that is most likely what it is. It happens. Siphoning happens. But that water must have been really kicking it for that to happen. So I would say watch your pressure and make sure that you're not going over pressure. Watch your time. Make sure your pressure isn't fluctuating, because if your pressure fluctuates, it's more likely that you're going to siphon. Okay, everybody, that is this week's canning chat. I hope it was helpful. Definitely drop your questions in the comments section below. Remember, if you have an immediate need, it's best to email me, and I will get back to you that day, theoretically, okay? But I try to get back to you as quickly as I can because I know everybody's in the middle of everything. I love canning chats. Seriously love canning chats. Remember, if you like what we do here, please hit that like, subscribe, and share. Check us out on Instagram and Facebook. And until the next time, be safe.